Paisley Park. Late night. Winter air pressing against the glass. Inside Studio A in Chanhassen, Minnesota, a cassette player clicks to life. A courier has just delivered it from Los Angeles, fresh mixes from Michael Jackson's upcoming project. The tape whirs. A new groove spills through the monitors. Synthetic drums, a sharper edge, a different kind of aggression. Prince doesn't move at first. He stands in the dim control room, one hand resting on the SSL console, the other gripping the back of a swivel chair. The song builds, harder drums, denser layers. According to accounts from people around him, someone mutters, "He's changing the sound." That's the moment. The turning point object isn't a glove or a guitar, it's the tape. Because what Prince is hearing on that cassette isn't just a new single, it's a strategic pivot. After Thriller turned pop into global architecture, this new material, what the world would soon know as bad, sounds leaner, tougher, less ornate. Michael isn't repeating himself, he's escalating. The stakes are invisible, but enormous. In the late 1980s, album cycles aren't just about art, they're about leverage, touring power, media dominance, MTV saturation, international market share. If Michael sharpens his edge and claims the future again, the press machine will start grinding harder than ever. Prince lets the tape play through. No visible reaction. But when the final note fades, he reaches forward and presses stop. "Book Studio B," he reportedly says. Weeks earlier, the industry's rules had already been in motion. Michael's team in Los Angeles was quietly signaling that the next era would be different. More street-oriented visuals, darker production textures, choreography that hit sharper angles. The narrative was forming, evolution. At Warner Brothers' offices in Burbank, executives tracking radio trends had noticed it too. New jack swing was creeping into rotation. Drum machines were getting punchier. The air felt more competitive. Prince had just come off the sprawling ambition of Sign o' the Times, a project critics called daring but commercially complex. He'd proven artistic depth. But now the tape in Studio A was a warning. Michael was not slowing down. The next morning at Paisley Park, Prince gathers his core musicians. The Linn drum machine sits in the center of the room. A whiteboard lists unfinished tracks. The cassette of Michael's new move lies face down on the console. "Again," Prince says to the drummer. They run a groove. It's tighter than before, less wandering, more impact. He stops them halfway. "Shorter intro," he says. "Hit harder." The escalation begins quietly. At rehearsal that week, the band notices the shift. Songs are being stripped of excess, hooks are sharpened, guitar solos are compressed, not extended. According to some accounts, Prince becomes hyper-focused on first impressions, how fast a song grabs you, how hard the drums land in the first 10 seconds. Pressure doesn't mean imitation, it means intensity. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Michael is rehearsing choreography for the Bad short film. Director discussions revolve around urban grit, sharper silhouettes, tighter cuts. The white glove is gone. The aesthetic is recalibrated. Two artists evolving at the same time, but only one has just heard the other's new move through studio monitors in Minnesota. In a meeting with Warner Brothers, an executive mentions Michael's upcoming release schedule. The room goes still. Release windows matter. Chart positioning matters. If albums collide, the press will frame it as war. Prince leans back in his chair. "When are we ready?" he asks. The answer is cautious. If we rush, quality slips. Prince taps the table once. "We don't rush, we pressure." That word lingers. Pressure isn't about speed, it's about density, saturation, visibility. Over the next month at Paisley Park, side projects accelerate. Production for associated acts intensifies. Rumors swirl that Prince is stockpiling material, creating a pipeline of sound that could flood radio if needed. The thesis begins to surface in real time. When Prince hears a move, he doesn't respond with commentary, he responds with output. But the real step, the one that will redefine the narrative, hasn't happened yet, because hearing the tape was only the spark. What he does next will make it clear that pressure can be applied without ever saying a name.
The next night in Studio B at Paisley Park, the lights are lower, the tape machine already threaded. Prince stands over the Lindrum, the cassette of Bad still sitting on the console like a silent provocation. He doesn't play it again. He doesn't need to. The memory of that sharper drum attack is enough. "Count it," he says to the band. The groove that follows is tighter than anything they've tracked that month. Less sprawl, more snap. The bass hits with intention. The snare cracks like a statement. According to accounts from musicians present, Prince stopped mid-take. "Strip it," he says. "No fat." The escalation isn't loud, it's surgical. At Warner Brothers in Burbank, executives are watching the calendar. Michael's team has begun hinting at release timelines for singles from Bad. Radio programmers are already primed. MTV has been briefed. The machine is in motion. Back in Chanhassen, Minnesota, Prince gathers his inner circle in the Paisley Park conference room. A whiteboard lists potential singles. Another column lists tour concepts. The cassette from Los Angeles remains face down near the mixing board, a physical reminder of the shift he heard. An executive mentions timing. If his single lands in late summer, the airwaves are his. Prince leans forward. "Then we don't wait for airwaves," he says, according to some insiders. "We create traffic." The next step is pure pressure. Instead of aiming at a single, Prince accelerates everything at once. Side projects that had been simmering are suddenly prioritized. Studio sessions stretch past 3 a.m. Production credits multiply. He isn't just crafting his own tracks, he's building an ecosystem of sound. At rehearsal for an upcoming live show, he changes the set list. Songs are shortened, segues tightened. There's less indulgence, more impact. The first 3 songs are designed to hit without pause. "Open hard," he instructs the lighting director. "No warm-up." Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Michael is rehearsing the choreography for the Bad video under industrial lights. The dance captain counts beats, 5, 6, 7, 8. The tone is more aggressive than Thriller. Leather instead of sequence, alleyway instead of stage. The contrast is becoming visible. Michael sharpens image and spectacle. Prince sharpens volume and frequency. When Michael's first single from Bad finally hits radio, the impact is immediate. Heavy rotation, primetime MTV slots. The industry breathes in. But in the same window, Prince drops new material into the market. Through associated acts, through surprise performances, through late-night television spots that weren't heavily advertised. It isn't a head-on collision, it's saturation. At Paisley Park, engineers monitor radio charts pinned to a corkboard. Colored pins mark markets: New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. Prince studies them like a general reviewing a map. "They're leaning West Coast," someone says, referring to Michael's radio dominance. Prince nods once. "Then we lean everywhere." More tour dates are added, smaller venues in key cities, pop-up performances rumored hours before doors open. According to some accounts, Prince believed visibility could be layered. If one single dominated mainstream rotation, he could dominate conversation by sheer presence. Pressure doesn't require confrontation, it requires persistence. At a closed-door Warner Brothers meeting, a Warner Brothers executive cautiously raises the comparison question. Press is already framing it as Michael versus Prince again. Prince doesn't flinch. "Let them," he says. Because the point isn't to win a week on the charts, it's to make the narrative irrelevant. The thesis crystallizes in action. When Prince hears a new move, he doesn't counterpunch in the same direction, he shifts the battlefield. But the true detonation hasn't happened yet, because there is one more step, one that will make clear that pressure isn't about flooding the market, it's about redefining control. And when that move lands, the industry won't call it competition, they'll call it revolution.
The detonation doesn't happen on a stage. It happens in ink. Early 1990s, Warner Bros. Headquarters. A long conference table. Contracts stacked in neat piles.
On one side, executives in dark suits. On the other, Prince, silent, eyes steady. On the table is the contract governing his masters. By then, Michael Jackson has already made his own seismic move, acquiring high-profile publishing rights through ATV, a business maneuver that signaled he understood ownership as power. In industry circles, that deal had been interpreted as a masterstroke. Control the songs, control the future. Prince heard that move. Years earlier, he'd heard the sonic shift of Bad through studio monitors at Paisley Park. Now he was staring at a different kind of pivot: ownership. The turning point object isn't a tape anymore, it's the contract. Across the table, a Warner executive explains terms, release schedules, recoupment structures, control clauses. The language is clinical, airtight. Prince listens. Then he asks a single question, according to accounts from people present. Who owns the masters? The answer is not him. The room is quiet. This is where pressure transforms. Because instead of quietly negotiating within the system, Prince escalates publicly. He begins appearing with the word slave written on his cheek during performances. He changes his name to an unpronounceable symbol, a move that forces media outlets to confront the limitations of labeling and ownership. The industry laughs at first. Late-night hosts make jokes about the artist formerly known as Prince. But inside boardrooms, executives understand what's happening. He is applying pressure to the structure itself. In Los Angeles, Michael is navigating his own corporate complexities, balancing artistic control with massive global deals. Both men are now playing chess at a corporate level, not just creative. But Prince's move is different. It's confrontational. At Paisley Park, press conferences are held where he speaks about artistic freedom and contractual limitations. He doesn't attack Michael. He doesn't need to. The comparison exists in the background. Two megastars, two approaches to power. One consolidates ownership through acquisition. The other challenges ownership through defiance. The next morning, after Prince appears with "Slave" on his cheek during a televised performance, headlines shift. It's no longer about chart positions. It's about contracts, about masters, about the relationship between black artistry and corporate control. Executives feel it. Warner Bros. Stock analysts field questions about artist relations. Other musicians begin asking about their own contracts. The conversation widens. That's pressure. Not a diss track, not a subtweet, a structural confrontation. Back in Minnesota, Prince walks through Studio A at Paisley Park, running his hand across the mixing console where that cassette from Los Angeles once played years earlier. The evolution is complete. When he heard Michael's new sonic move, he responded with output. When he saw Michael's publishing acquisition, he responded with confrontation. The thesis locks into place. Prince didn't just react to Michael's moves. He reacted to what those moves represented: control, leverage, power, and applied pressure in a way that expanded the battlefield. The consequence isn't immediate victory, it's legacy. Years later, when artists renegotiate contracts or fight for masters, Prince's name surfaces in interviews. When conversations about ownership in music intensify, his public defiance is cited as precedent. Michael's empire remains monumental, built on global spectacle and strategic acquisitions. Prince's legacy carries a different weight, one of resistance, autonomy, and the willingness to risk ridicule for principle. Two icons. One heard a new move, and instead of chasing it, he changed the terrain beneath it. Because real pressure isn't about being louder. It's about making the system feel you.